Welcome to All Things Moore County, Moore County's weekly radio show, highlighting the many facets of the Sandhills. That includes real estate, lifestyles, community, and neighborhood. And now, from Four Properties, here's your host, Bill Sahadi.
Our house in the middle of our street, our house.
Good morning. Welcome to the talk show, All Things Moore County. We were privileged last week to speak with Jill Saunders, who is running the 8th annual Shamrock and Roll Race on the 12th of March. It's a passion of hers, and she's raised over $65,000 in that time to help support the teachers in Moore County. She was never a teacher herself, but she has some children who are in the Moore County school system. And the 8th annual comes up on the 12th of March, and it's not a small coincidence that we're going to segue from her conversation last week into a panel discussion today about Moore County schools, issues that are going to be, that citizens of Moore County have an opportunity to vote on March the 15th, which puts us actually 4 weeks out from Election Day. There are some very important issues on the ballot that affect citizens of Moore County of all ages, whether they have children or not. And it just seems like one of the common themes of this spring, 2016, is all about the kids, and it's all about the teachers, and it's all about the quarter-cent sales tax. We have a great panel today, and I'd just like to introduce everybody briefly. Helena Wallin-Miller is on the school board, and she is a parent of 2 children who are in the school system. And Helena, you have not an education, but you have an experience, 25 years, working as a manager, working in nonprofit and government agencies in the human service field. How did you evolve to get to a point where you're now a board member on the school district? How did your experience contribute?
That's a great question, Bill. I think one of the jobs that I do in my work is I look a lot at data, and I look at information that is available publicly to find out how that's going to impact, the work that I'm doing. And I believe it was in 2013 or 2014, there was an article in the paper about the school budget. My kids were in kindergarten and first grade at the time, and in the year-round program. And at the time, I saw a little something about the possibility of the dual-track program going away in the elementary schools. And I initially got very interested in that. And then I started looking at the budget to see, why that was happening. And what really pulled me away from just looking at that particular issue was digging into all the data that the Moore County Schools budget had and how it has really decreased over the years. If you look at the amount of funding per pupil, and I did all that calculation. I always my friend Karin is here today too, and I'm always the data person. I like to look at the numbers, and I did the calculation to see how much the cost, the funding that we're getting per child has decreased over the years. And so I think my experience and my work of looking at data helped me start to get interested and start advocating on behalf of kids in the school system, and how can we better serve them? How can we increase the funding availability that we have? So I got very involved at that time with Parents for More, and we can talk a little bit about that later, in trying to educate folks in Moore County about how the budget that we get from the state level really impacts what kind of programs can be offered in the schools. So I showed up at quite a few board meetings and spoke and watched a lot online, and just became very active.
So we have a few people that we know in common, and I hadn't met you, but I instantly now put a lot of credibility in what you're doing and how you said it. It's interesting. You can analyze things, and you can come up with common denominators very quickly to find out why there are some shortfalls, where the gaps are, but to do it more analytically perhaps than just big picture talking. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's accurate. And one of the things that I came away with that initial analysis was that you can't look at specific things for yourself or for your family, that you have to kind of think about the whole county.
Right.
And that's where, it took me a lot to step back from what I was initially interested in,
Right.
and realize that there were some bigger issues. And the data tells part of the story. It never tells the whole story, but once you start talking to people,
Right.
The data kind of leads you down to a path where you can start asking the questions that you need to ask to figure out what needs to be done.
Great. Well said,
Thank
by the
you.
way. I also want to introduce, you mentioned Karin Kent. Karin's an administrator of the Parents for More. It's a grassroots group, I guess, since 2011. But you are also a pediatrician, a retired pediatrician at a very young age.
Yes, that's true.
I mean, I'm blown away.
Well, I'm older than I look, if that makes you feel any better. But I retired after practicing in this area for about 3 years to take care of some family members.
Right.
And I have two at the time, young children, now middle schoolers. So it just felt like the right thing to do. I think I sort of came to the funding issue from my children's perspective, but also the patients that I saw at Sandhills Pediatrics is a very wide variety of socioeconomics classes, not just, any one particular end of things, and seeing what different kids need and different programs were helpful to different groups and how a lot of those programs were going away.
Mm-hmm.
And the funding really became the sticking point. Everything came back to there's just not enough funds, And
Right.
that was how Helena and I met, through a mutual friend, and then our mutual unhappiness with the shortage of funds for various programs.
I was going to ask how the two of you did meet, but there's a groundswell of support amongst a lot of parents who are some are active and some are not, but they're all lending a hand. And it seems like this year, more than ever, prior to an election, I've never heard so much conversation about education, about the Moore County schools, and it just seems like, based on what I'm hearing, there should be a very vigorous turnout 4 weeks from today, on the 15th of March.
Yes, we certainly hope so. It's really been our goal in the last several years, as Parents for More and friends and citizens and everyone, to just raise awareness for how things happen, that it's not just numbers on paper that make a budget and then people vote how they feel like.
Right.
It really comes down to how many pieces of the pie are there, how can we divide them, how do we help the most people, and then letting parents know, you need to vote, you need to write to your legislators, you need to follow your the email things, you need to come to the board meetings and the county commissioners meetings, that there's much more to a budget and to what happens at your child's school than just what happens in your child's classroom, that it really comes from somewhere more distant, and that we all need to be involved and pay attention to that.
You brought up something, the county commissioners. The relationship with the county commissioners has become a much stronger relationship than it might have been in the past. Helena, I'll ask you that. I'm going to introduce John in a minute, but these women have the floor. He can take it. It's okay. But
I'm yielding the floor to them.
Okay. There is a very good relationship now, isn't there? A
There
good
is.
synergy.
Yeah, there is. We've had several meetings with the county commissioners and the Board of Education together, which
Right.
I think have been really helpful. And I don't recall that happening in the past, these joint meetings. But these conversations have really been open dialogue about, specifically about the facilities plan and how we can move the facilities plan forward in terms of funding. I know in the past, just from what we've seen, and I will almost embarrassingly admit that Karin and I, before I was on the board, we would go and speak to the public comment part of the county commissioners. And I think that's changed now. I think that the community sees that there is some, we're working together,
Right.
that there is a mutual respect for where each of us are coming from and what the needs are. And the county commissioners has been extremely supportive of trying to get us to the point where we can begin
Right.
building.
Right.
We're not quite there yet because there are a few more hoops that we have to get through March 15th, but there will be some opportunities for us in the future to keep this dialogue, and it's been really exciting, I think,
Yeah.
just to have the cooperation and the collaboration and the openness in communication.
There seems to be, this year, last year, the year before, more than ever, so many younger families moving into Moore County with so many children. I have the Rice Krispies and the gummy bears in the back seat of my car to prove it every Friday afternoon. And they are coming here to move their kids into the Moore County schools. And there's almost a responsibility for the citizens to provide and to keep providing the best they can. But we have so many nonprofits in Moore County. We have so many organizations who are short on funds, who are trying to think outside the box, who are trying to raise monies on a local level as opposed to relying on either state or federal help. The school system is no different. We're equally challenged here, are we not?
I think that's true.
Karin?
A lot of our funding does come from the state level,
Right.
and that's in recent years been where we've seen the largest cuts
Right.
to the budget, and especially not even cuts alone, but also not keeping up with the incredible explosion of students. We now have almost 13,000, I believe, students in Moore County schools, and the per pupil funding that comes from the state has been drastically decreased.
Right.
But also, I think, we struggle to balance why we're here. We came for the schools because it's a wonderful place to live.
Right.
The community is kind. It's thoughtful. It's giving. It's just a very nice place to raise your children. And exactly for that reason is why a lot of families would like to come here. And then, education is a part of that we all benefited from wherever we grew up. And we, have seen this community speak up and support that.
Very well said. I think, John, good morning. I want to introduce you, but I think that we can just yield the table to Helena and Karin for the rest of the show.
I'm very good with that.
Are you good with that? We're talking with John Birath, who is the Executive Director of the Moore County School Operations. John, tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got to this table with these two ladies today. We've never met. I've never had the privilege to meet you. How long have you been with the Moore County school system?
I just joined Moore County Schools in December 2014.
Okay.
So just over a year.
Where are you from?
Prior to that, I was working in Harnett County Schools in a similar role, helping them get to a point with their building and facility needs campaign and other operational aspects get to the level that they needed to be. And prior to that, I was a practicing architect in North Carolina.
Really?
Absolutely. I was a principal of a firm running a Fayetteville office.
Really?
For quite a few years, working in the K-12 marketplace.
Huh.
I've been working in the K-12 marketplace, helping school districts in various parts of the country since 1992.
Yeah. We hear a lot about how the schools are antiquated, are overcrowded, and there are a couple of issues coming up to vote on the 15th of March. Can you speak a little bit about the overcrowding of the schools and the stress on the physical structures?
Absolutely. Prior to my arrival, the district has conducted quite a bit of work in laying the groundwork necessary to demonstrate and show some of the issues they're confronting, such as age of facilities, the overcrowding, the young kids coming, strong military presence of families coming, having young families. And what they had done is there's an organization at North Carolina State University, Operations Research and Education Laboratory. What they do is they work with various school systems across the state, some in Virginia and South Carolina as well, in helping them do projections. They're kind of the crystal ball people. They take a lot of information. They meet with developers, planning departments, Fort Bragg, major influences on the region, the Sandhills here, and businesses, to put together what the projected growths would be in the county for the next 10-year cycle.
Right.
So that's great because we only know we could fit so many kids at any of our schools. And so they put together a chart that takes each school, identifies how many students can be in there at the current capacity, and then they show the growth of that school for the next 10 years. And so as today, we're sitting just over 13,000 students right now. By 2022, let's see, I'll give you a fact here. Projected for school year 2023-2024. That's quite a ways out, but
Right.
amazingly it gets here faster before you know it.
That's right.
We'll be over 14,000 students in the school district. So how do you accommodate the growth for that? And we have some schools that are already well over capacity, lots of mobile classrooms put in place. You could go just down the road from here to Pinehurst Elementary. And you can see mobile classrooms in service out there to help us try to find a place to put the students.
Right.
Our facilities are aging. That is a fact, as everything does.
Right.
There's nothing wrong necessarily with an aging facility. It all depends on the preventative maintenance that had been done over the many decades to it. Various parts of the country, Bill, you can go and look at and find 100-year-old schools that are still in use today and very viable to today's environment for education.
Right.
And some of the struggles we have here is some of the issues of not being ahead of the curve on preventative maintenance. And we're seeing the price of that. And that's what led to the master facilities plan that the Board of Education adopted this past October.
Mm-hmm. So you're, in a way, you're all trying to play catch up a little bit, but there's a responsibility with growth. And we're going to come back in a second set, and we're going to talk about one of the items on the ballot on March the 15th, which is the quarter-cent sales tax. And I'd love to hear your take on it and why you feel it's so important. We've had a few past conversations about it, and it's important for all citizens, whether they are parents with children in the school system, but believe it or not, especially if they're not, because a community is made up of jobs and schools. Jobs come first, the schools are there, and without the jobs or without the schools, what do you have? So everybody who lives here has the opportunity to, I think, to help the Moore County school system along. We're going to continue the panel discussion with Helena Wallin-Miller, Karin Kent, and John Birath. We'll be back in a minute. Thank you.
Our house in the middle of our street. Our house in the middle of our house. It has a crown. There's always something happening, and it's usually quite loud.
Welcome back to All Things Moore County, and welcome back to our panel discussion about the Moore County schools specifically, and with March 15th right around the corner, there are some issues on the table that the citizens of Moore County are going to have a chance to vote on, speak about between now and then, and get informed. Helena, a couple of weeks ago, I think it was on the 2nd of February, you all had an informative session about the quarter-cent sales tax that is up for a vote on the 15th of March. And from what I understand, that particular tax is something the citizens can vote on, and the tax would be earmarked specifically for school construction.
That's right, Bill. So it is a quarter-cent sales tax that will be on the March 15th ballot. It's a sales tax referendum. So what that would do is our local county tax is currently 2%, and that would bring it up to 2.25%, and that extra 0.25% would be 100% for school construction, and the Moore County commissioners have allocated it as such and have made a public, actually I think they passed a resolution to that effect. So any new monies gained for that extra 0.25% would go to facilities, and it's about $2.2 million they're estimating at first, and that could grow depending on how many visitors come and how much is spent in the county.
And is it true that this particular sales tax, you'd have way more control over it than if it were just a general property tax increase?
I think the way that the sales tax increase will work is that because they have said that 100% of it would go to the schools,
Right.
we will be able to use that all for facilities planning. So for the new schools that we have in mind right now, are the first 4 schools on the docket, will be used. It'll be used for that. And I think the important thing that people need to remember too is that these schools will not be built overnight. But they will be built over a 4 or 5 year process, and we will be able to break ground coming, I should look at John here, probably in the summer, fall, if this passes.
If this passes our current plan, because we already have architects under contract working on this Advanced Career Center, which is the first project we need to get moving with. Mm-hmm. And at the current schedule we have, this will go out for bid for construction in November and December, and immediately break ground following the award of bid by the board.
Can you tell me a little bit about the Advanced Center? Tell me what it is and what the plans are for it.
Yes, Bill. The Advanced Career Center is an exciting opportunity for the students here in Moore County Schools. It is an extension of the 3 high schools that we currently operate, Union Pines, Pinecrest, and North Moore. And what this facility will do is it provides pathway opportunities for any student. What a pathway is, if you think of it in terms of this, there's the health services opportunity, and that's where we're going to have biomedical opportunity for instruction, nursing labs, and practitioners assisting with that. We have skilled trades. You still have a demand for skilled trades in our community, everything ranging from automotive to carpentry, etc. We also have the ever so present and increasing influence of technology. We all hear stories about those careers that no one knew about when they were in high school, but yet as soon as they're out of college, there's a whole field of it. And so how do we stay relevant and ahead of that? And so there's going to be a whole technology aspect to it that's going to help prepare students for those opportunities ahead of them. There's also going to be global studies where we're going to be able to offer unique global languages, also bring a opportunity for Northmore students to be a part of a JROTC program. So by the state distribution of staffing for teachers, what the state looks at Moore County schools as if we are all in one building, grades K through 12. Mm-hmm. Well, we're 23 separate schools. Mm-hmm. But by the state's allotment of teachers, they group it as one school, and then they divide up each grade by a set number of students per grade, and then say this is the number of teachers you get. Well, if as Helena could attest to on this, if math was perfect and the world was perfect with it, which it is not.
It's not?
Shockingly so.
Okay.
We fall short on teachers by the state allotment, and then we rely on our local funds from the county to make up for it. Right. That also does is it restricts the number of courses that can be offered at schools because we need to have classrooms with the most number of students in them as we can to support a teaching position. So perhaps there's a topic at each high school that there's an interest in by the students, but not enough to sustain that full-time teacher position. This facility will provide an avenue for that to occur.
Okay. And the facility can only be a reality at this point if the quarter-cent sales tax is passed?
Correct.
In the immediate future.
Correct, for the immediate future. Now, the county has done a great job in setting a lot of money aside, already being aware of the conditions of the schools and the need for school construction coming. And over the past couple years, they have built a reserve fund of in excess of $20 million to go towards the school construction. And that is why when you partner what they have been able to set aside, their ongoing revenue stream that they will continue to put towards it, and this referendum on the quarter-cent sales tax, when you put all that together, that's how you fund these first 4 projects.
Okay. There's a history in Moore County just recently with the state lottery where monies were taken away or siphoned away from us, and this particular quarter-cent sales tax, that will not happen. So I have to ask the 3 of you, Are you aware, what would the opposition to the quarter-cent sales tax say? Do we know? Helena? I mean, am I asking a question at a school?
I will jump in and
Please
say,
do.
in the past months of this dialogue with the Board of Education, the Board of Commissioners, staff from both the schools, we have done numerous public presentations on our facility needs, and up to the most recent February 2nd presentation at the community college, and I have never heard a single negative response.
Right.
I think Moore County has a history of supporting education and facilities. We moved here in 2008. I believe there was a bond passed by the citizens back then, and it's a long-standing tradition of support in Moore County itself. I think the way this tax has been presented is a chance for the citizens of Moore County to vote on giving money to our schools from our county that stays in our county, that does not go through Raleigh, through any sort of loophole where funds can be redirected. As Helena mentioned previously, the county commissioners on, I believe, November 15th publicly resolved that 100% of these additional funds, which is conservatively estimated to be about $2.2 million per year, would go to construction and maintenance in Moore County. And I think this is giving the people of Moore County a chance to say, yes, we absolutely support schools. It's our money, and this is how we want to spend it.
You know, the other thing I would say about that is there are 27 other counties in North Carolina that already have a 2.25% sales tax, and many of them are nearby. Cumberland, Robeson, Lee, Harnett, Orange, Montgomery, Randolph, Durham. And so I know a lot of people will sometimes leave the county to go shopping because they have different opportunities. So they would then be spending some of this money in another county,
right.
And we don't know how that money's being spent. But we know if it's spent here locally, that this money, a quarter cent of that, the new sales tax will come directly to our schools. So we really think that, once people understand that other counties are already doing this and what the benefit is to our own community by trying to keep some of that money here, I think it's great. Plus, we have a lot of visitors that come to Moore County for a lot of different reasons, primarily golf, but there are other, pastimes here. And I think there are 1.17 million visitors that come to Moore County every year. And the last data I looked at, because, I like looking at data, I think it was about $274 that each visitor spent on each visit. I mean, that's, I don't want to put it on the visitors, but I do think it helps us in keeping some of our infrastructure and our commitment to the schools by having them participate, as well as the residents.
But for some of the financially challenged people in Moore County, it's important that this quarter-cent sales tax is not just a tax on everything. It's not a tax on necessities.
Correct. Gas, groceries, and prescription drugs are some of the things that are excluded from this tax. So the basic necessities for a lot of people. There's a whole list of other things which you can find on the Moore County government website, specifically addressed in detail. But I think those three things make it a lot more palatable for the average citizen.
Yeah. Unlike other taxes, I can hear people of different generations, because we have 5 living in Moore County right now. Some of the civic generation might say, oh, another tax that they're shoving down our throat, but that's not the case. People have an opportunity to vote for the tax as opposed to just having to accept it. And that's a huge qualitative difference.
It is, I think, and again, it speaks to the history of support for the schools, the public schools in Moore County. And if you look at it, really, it's approximately 5 cents on every $20 spent, which, doesn't sound like much when you put it that way.
Mm-hmm. The tax base in Moore County, to begin with, and one of the reasons we attract so many people, in addition to the military, we have a very low tax base. And yet the services that the individual towns provide is highly effective. It's not just about the tax rate, it's about what are you getting for the money. And this is a destination for people to come to live, and yes, to play golf, yes, to retire, just to live. So the way you put it, 5 cents on every $20 is almost an invisible tax.
Yeah. And for those of us with kids in the school system, the quality that we get is amazing for how low our property taxes are comparative to other areas I've lived in the north and northeast. It's amazing. Our teachers are amazing, and our educational system does very well, very efficient with what we have.
Yeah, John.
And Bill, I think it's also very important to stress in that statement you made that the county has done a wonderful job of providing services to everybody
Right.
over the past years and
Right.
even decades. The problem we are facing is what has been stated earlier, is we have seen a reduction in the state responsibility of what the state has been funding to the schools and has been pushing off some of their expenditures onto the local governments. So what we're looking at is a way to fill that deficit that has come down to us from the state.
Yeah. I have a question or a comment. I'd like to just throw it out there before we wind down. Is Moore County cursed by the perception that we are considered, you know what I'm going to say, Helena. She knows exactly what I'm going to say. Is Moore County cursed by the perception that we are a wealthy county? Nobody wants to answer that.
I mean, I think if you look at, we are considered a Tier 3 county, which
Yeah.
is considered that we're a wealthy county. But if you
Right.
look at in the school system, if you look at our school lunch, free and reduced school lunch numbers, which I have to say it's in the 40s. Is that right, John? I don't know if anybody has that on top of our heads. It's high.
Okay.
We have a lot of needs here that are not recognized because we're a Tier 3, and so we're not able also to get different state grants because of that.
Right.
So we are penalized in many ways because of that.
So March 15th becomes pivotal for a lot of reasons, the sales tax being one of them, our representation in Raleigh, and again, everything is earmarked at this point and for the focus of this conversation on the students. But I want to talk in the third set about the teachers and some very embarrassing information that we have about the pay scale. We're going to come back in the third set. We're having a panel discussion on the Moore County schools and the upcoming March 15th opportunity for citizens to vote on their county and their community. This is all things Moore County.
Our house in the middle of our street. Our house in the middle of our house. It has a crowd. There's always something happening, and it's usually quite loud.
Welcome back to our final set on our panel discussion about Moore County schools, some of the issues coming up in the March 15th election, and the overwhelming concern for the students in Moore County. And Moore County is a great place to live, and people who live here who love it. Karin, as you said, we say that on the show all the time. It is a great place to live.
I agree.
Some of the reality is that there are lots of other states that have, for instance, a higher teacher pay, and ours, we don't rank so high nationally. And that becomes a problem, doesn't it, John, for losing talented people to other states, or more difficult to attract teachers here initially?
Absolutely, Bill. And part of the struggles we see, and it's not just here in Moore County, but in also all our other school districts, is that a student graduating from school and education in some of those higher paid states
Right.
are unable to get an entry position. They are looking for, because they can in the marketplace, seasoned, experienced teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happens is we recruit a lot of students to come to North Carolina and to have the opportunity to teach here. North Carolina's a great place to live. You yourself have come down here, as many of us have,
Right.
Not being native, and we found a beauty of living here.
Right.
But if you're a young, out-of-school teacher carrying debt on your education, and which could be a totally topic discussion for another day, Bill.
Yeah, thank you. I'm making notes.
Is that at the teacher pay level here, they're not going to be able to sustain themselves in any type of well, I'm generalizing. Some cannot. Some choose to stay. But what we have seen is a larger number of them getting the experience they need here and then applying for positions 4 to 5 years later.
Right.
Up in those districts that pay a lot better to those teachers at that level of experience.
And it's not just the teachers, it's also the teacher assistants. It seems like they're the ones that are too lightly regarded, and they perform a vital role to help the teachers facilitate. When you have overcrowded classrooms, how much of that pressure is shifted to the teachers? It's difficult. I'm not bringing it up because it's a bad point, but it's true. But there's so much opportunity here to improve, and one of the things that your conversation is going to do is going to bring a lot more awareness to the issue, and the citizens are going to have a chance to voice their opinions in 4 weeks from now.
Well, and one way that we
Helena.
can support the teachers, obviously I think we've done a lot in the past years in just making sure that we support the teachers verbally and in how we treat them. I think that's very important. But facilities is a big part of that too,
Yes.
and making sure that they are working in classrooms that have working heat and which they do have, but just that are not at risk of having something break on them or having the equipment that they need. And so some of the modernization that we've talked about with the facilities plan will help us get there, and to keep on top of that, because I think their work environment will have important bearing on how they feel when they're teaching and what kind of supports that they have to be able to work with the kids they do. And you mentioned TAs, and let me just say something about the teaching assistants too, that the funding that we've been receiving from the TAs has gone down over the years from the state. And as a parent with a second and third grader, I have seen that impact them. I mean, we have some wonderful, wonderful teachers, but these little kids, they need a little extra guidance in the classroom, especially when they're learning their basics about reading and math. So anything that we can do to support the teachers, I think, is important, in particularly in helping them do the job that they love to do. The ones that are here are excellent and passionate about the work that they're doing and trying to find ways to reach all the kids, no matter if they're the regular learners versus the slower learners versus the different kind of learners. They find the way to reach those kids, and we have to give them the supports that they need.
And paying those teachers as the valued professionals that they are. The teachers and the teachers' assistants are what keeps the classroom together.
Right.
The pencils and the paper and the things that parents send in are very much needed and are certainly very appreciated, but without the quality of the teachers that we've been lucky enough to have in our experience in Moore County, we wouldn't have very much. So we're very fortunate.
And as Helena mentioned, one of the greatest aspects, Bill, we have to address is these aged facilities and right-sizing the instructional spaces. We have seen, as a result of some of the changes made at the General Assembly, greater numbers of students in our classrooms. But some of these classrooms that they're being put in, our oldest facilities date back to the 30s, were not designed nor sized for the number of students we put in there today. And so if you were to walk into a classroom and find 30 kids crammed in there trying to do activities, it's impossible for I guess it's impossible for the true intent of instruction to occur in those situations, and what a burden that is to the teacher.
Right.
By providing them with the right space size and the right amenities to the space.
Right.
Well, John, when you took me on a tour of Pinecrest High School in the fall, we actually went into a few of these classrooms that were what I felt were really way too small for what they were trying to do. And learning has changed so much over time. It's not just sitting and listening to the teacher write on, and watch them write something on the chalkboard. It's about being able to work in small groups and to be able to move chairs around and be able to do that. And you can't you can't do that in these classrooms where there's not even a place to put book bags for some of these children and students. And some of the science classrooms we walked into, I was amazed that they were able to do what they were able to do, given some of the needs that were obvious. So I think when we start talking about the Advanced Career Center and in building any new school, you're talking about right-sizing, making the spaces work for the way that learning has changed over time. There's still the basic way that we all learn, but there is now the focus on interaction, the focus on having the students themselves be part of the teaching and the learning from one another, I think is really important.
It's also an expansion that is the opportunity for cross-discipline. No longer do you necessarily learn your topic on a course in that one isolated classroom. By bringing the other disciplines into it, you create cross-connectivity and a betterment for that student moving forward. Let's take, for example, just what we talked about, the Advanced Career Center. So possibly you're in a global language program, but now's a great opportunity also to be a part of the JROTC program. As we know, there's a lot of demand within even the next steps for the JROTC for foreign languages. Right. So we're at a great opportunity to partner between those two disciplines and opportunity, whether it's with technology and visualization and 3D modeling and drafting and construction, to have all that cross-disciplineship come together. And the Advanced Career Center, we're hoping, being the first project that we build, will demonstrate that and the benefits of it across not just Moore County, but across the state, to let people see and understand what potential can be accomplished. Mm-hmm. The Advanced Career Center, providing that pathway opportunity for students, is also being partnered with business foundations. Every student, and this was a great concept that the board has been in full support of, every student that attends the Advanced Career Center is going to take a business foundations course. Because the end goal, Bill, is not just that we need to prepare a student for college, to prepare a student for certification, to prepare that student for licensure. We want to prepare students to become not just employed, but the opportunity to employ others.
Right.
And so this is a very unique opportunity for Moore County to embrace and to move on with.
Part of the challenge is 10 years from now, there will be jobs available to the graduates from the high school that might not even exist today.
Correct.
Jobs are changing, and you're trying to create as much of a well-rounded education on top of everything else. Just throw that on top of the pile.
Well, and I think we're going to become a real, if I'm not mistaken, this will be the first time a rural community has done this in North Carolina, to have this type of Advanced Career Center.
Is that right? Yeah,
I mean, we've visited ones in Winston-Salem and in larger communities, but in a small setting like ours, it's going to be very exciting and hopefully be a way to also to think about when people are making decisions about where to move, where to teach, that this will become a beacon to bring in some of those teachers, or to bring in some, new professionals to the area, or new families and new retirees. So we hope that it will really become a way to enrich our entire community.
Yeah. This is really a grassroots movement in Moore County. There are grassroots movements going on all across the country because people have to do this locally. They can't rely on the federal government anymore. And it's kind of nice to witness this as you're all talking, because there is a groundswell of support, and it is building. And what you're doing today really is you're trying to give the public good information so that they can make an informed decision, basically.
Correct. And I think the old phrase, knowledge is power, absolutely stands true. In this community, people, when they know what the facts are, we trust each other to make the right decision. We all appreciate this community.
Right.
And people being engaged in attending school board meetings and attending commissioners' meetings, registering to vote by the deadline, showing up to the polls to vote, educating their friends, educating themselves. There's plenty of information available on Facebook pages and websites to get any manner of information or any question answered, but really to just be a part of the process and not just let someone else make the decisions for us. These are our kids, this is our community, and it's our responsibility to find out what's going on and to do what's right.
Yeah, and you have some additional information that I think you wanted to share as well, Karin.
I do. I like dates. Helena's the data girl and I'm the dates. So what you can do, make sure that you're registered to vote. The deadline is February 19th to be registered to vote for the March 15th primary. On the March 15th primary ballot, regardless of whether you're registered for a specific party or unaffiliated, there will be the question to vote for or against the local quarter-cent sales tax. I would strongly advocate voting for the sales tax, as we've spoken about today.
So would I.
Thank you. And if you can't be there, you could be an absentee voter. It's very easy to get an absentee ballot. I actually downloaded the form and filled it out for my husband today to make sure that he wasn't too busy on that day to sign. Mm-hmm. So you can do that from the Moore County Board of Elections website. The deadline for those is March 8th at 5 p.m. Mm-hmm. There's also one stop or early voting if you go to the Carthage office of the Moore County Board of Elections between March 3rd and March 12th. Mm-hmm. You can go in and fill out your ballot immediately and be done. Or on March the 15th, you can go to your local poll to vote. There are a lot of military families in our area, and there's always questions as to how do they vote. There are various and sundry ways to have it done, and the best way we've found to have people do it, if you're deployed overseas, to fill out an absentee ballot, if you're registered in this area, and regardless, to call Glenda Clendenin at the Moore County Board of Elections. Mm-hmm. She is incredibly knowledgeable and incredibly nice, has been very helpful in helping military members and their spouses get registered to vote because their kids are in the school district too and they deserve a say.
If for people who are listening to you and driving around today, is there a website that they could just jot down where they could go to get an overview of some of the information you provided and some of the conversation that you've had today?
I think there are several. There's certainly for the tax specific itself, the Moore County government has their own information put out. More specific to parents and families would be the Parents for More, MOORE website, and then even more specific than that to the tax referendum itself is the Invest in More Kids website. There are multiple frequently asked questions, downloadable brochures and information on all of those sites.
Yeah, and we'll make sure we put all of this into the synopsis where people can go and listen on podcast. John?
And I would also add, Moore County Schools, we have a webpage dedicated to facilities, and you can see all the previous presentations, the budgets for every project, and the listing of them all, as well as our projected out-of-capacity studies. So there's a lot of information to be obtained there as well.
Yeah.
And which is important to point out, too, here is that we're talking about, in this dialogue so far, we've mentioned just 4 projects. There are many more, but we have identified our first 4 as our most pressing projects that need to be accomplished.
Right.
And that's what this begins to solve.
Right.
However, until we solve these first 4, we'll never get to the next 4, and the next 4, and the next 4. Bill, we have 23 schools in our system, and they're all aging. All 3 high schools turned 50 years old. Mm-hmm. So it's time for us to go and do major work on those. Mm-hmm. If we were to get past our immediate needs of school expansions and new school needs and get into a structure of modernization and right-sizing and updating of facilities, and we did 1 a year, it would be 23 years until we got back to that first one. Mm-hmm. And as we've discussed before, that's 2 generations of mm-hmm. students. Mm-hmm. That might be too long. We might find we need to be doing 2 every year and make it a 12-year cycle, mm-hmm. or maybe it needs to be an 18-year cycle. We need to find that way to get to that point, and all this funding will help get us there eventually.
The 3 of you have gone a long way to start to change the conversation in Moore County about the schools, and it is a grassroots movement. growth is an opportunity, but it's also a privilege. And how responsible citizens handle it will say a lot about the people that live here. And in closing, I just want to say the quarter-cent sales tax, Karin, as you had said, is not a regressive tax. Moore County has, it's a tale of two counties. We have people who are comfortable and a lot of people who are not. And there's a misnomer about the perception. So not being a regressive tax makes it better for everybody, and that includes groceries, gasoline,
and prescription medication.
And prescription medication. Helena, thank you for joining us. I will give you the show if you'd like it for next week. You did great.
Thank you, Bill. It was fun. Thank you.
You are a very you're a pleasure to listen to, and Karin, the same can be said for you.
Thank you.
You guys make a formidable team. John, you and I can just carry their coattails as we go forward, huh?
I'm more than happy to do that as well.
You were also no, seriously, you're an excellent spokesperson as well.
Thank you, Bill. I know we've all enjoyed this opportunity to speak and share this with you and the listeners.
Yeah, and please consider that this table a forum for the future. We try to give information on this show. We don't try to sell anything. We just try to give people good information, and you guys have gone a long way to doing that today. So we'll see everyone March 15th at the polls. And we'll be hearing from you between now and then. You have a lot of work to do in the next 4 weeks.
We do.
Yes, we do.
Put your sneakers on.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you so
Bill.
much,
Thank
Bill.
you. And everybody have a great week, and we'll speak with you next week.
In the middle of our street, our house. In the middle of our house, it has a crowd. There's always something happening, and it's usually quite loud. Our mum, she's so house proud.